Have you ever truly paused to contemplate what you genuinely believe? We inhabit a world where information is abundant, yet ignorance, quite often, is a deliberate choice. Why do so many individuals uncritically embrace ideas? Ignorance is not merely the absence of knowledge, but rather a conscious decision not to seek further, not to confront the intricate complexities of truth. From an early age, we are conditioned by everything around us: culture, education, media. We grow up believing that what we are taught constitutes the sole truth, and thus, the seed of ignorance is sown. It is subtle yet potent, and we often prefer to coexist with it, as it offers a deceptive sense of comfort. But what if everything you believe is a limited construct? Are you truly prepared to question everything you know? Our brain has an innate tendency to seek information that validates what we already believe. This phenomenon is known as confirmation bias. Each time we encounter something that reinforces our pre-existing beliefs, we experience an internal validation as if we are on the correct path. Yet, curiously, this does not make us any wiser. On the contrary, it ensnares us in a vicious cycle of limited beliefs. It seems innocuous, doesn't it? After all, seeking confirmation for our ideas can provide a certain degree of emotional comfort. However, this relentless pursuit of validation ultimately distorts our perception of reality. Instead of cultivating a broad perspective, we begin to perceive only what we wish to see, ignoring or disregarding anything that contradicts our beliefs. Consider a simple example. In a political discussion, someone who already holds a strong opinion about a particular party might, upon further research, only find information that reinforces their viewpoint. They ignore or dismiss data that contradicts their beliefs. This is confirmation bias in action, and it prevents us from broadening our perspective, placing us within an echo chamber where truths are limited to what we already believe. Now ask yourself, have you ever caught yourself doing this? Have you ever researched something solely to confirm what you already believe to be true? At what points in your life have you chosen to believe what was most comfortable instead of pursuing the truth, even if it was difficult or uncomfortable? Ignorance resides not merely in the absence of knowledge, but also in the resistance to knowledge that challenges us. Every time we reject something that does not align with our beliefs, we fuel our ignorance. And frequently, the reluctance to embrace novel ideas stems from an underlying apprehension of identity erosion. When we hold profound convictions, anything that contravenes those beliefs often appears as an existential threat to our worldview. Confirmation bias thus constitutes a formidable snare. It impedes our growth, stifles our learning, and entrenches us in a state of illusory comfort. The relentless pursuit of truth necessitates considerable exertion, relentless self-interrogation, and frequently, profound discomfort. Embracing challenging concepts can indeed be arduous, yet it is precisely within this crucible of perpetual inquiry that genuine growth is forged. Compounding this predicament, this snare often remains imperceptible. Frequently, we remain entirely oblivious to our entrapment within its confines. Constantly, we are inundated with corroborating information that reaffirms our pre-existing convictions, and imperceptibly, we seal ourselves off from the broader reality. How then might we extricate ourselves from this self-imposed echo chamber? How can we cultivate the capacity to interrogate our most deeply held certainties? It is an inherently challenging undertaking, demanding considerable fortitude. The courage to concede that what we have long held as truth might, in fact, be erroneous, or at the very least, incomplete. And as you embark upon the interrogation of your beliefs, the world around you may begin to appear profoundly altered, more intricate, undeniably more challenging. Yet, concurrently, it will reveal itself as more authentic. Ponder now. What truths are you actively evading, precisely because they imperil your established worldview? And even more critically, are you prepared to confront the vast expanse of your own ignorance? Ignorance, while frequently perceived as a deficiency, can also be construed as a formidable defense mechanism. In an epoch characterized by information overload and burgeoning complexity, it is considerably more convenient to reside within a self-imposed comfort zone, where one is spared the exigency of confronting reality in its unvarnished entirety. Ignorance, therefore, transcends mere absence of knowledge. It represents a deliberate choice, an active decision to circumvent the inherent discomfort that accompanies the relentless pursuit of truth. Contemplate the following scenario. You are presented with the opportunity to apprehend a challenging truth, one capable of fundamentally altering your perception of the world, your interpersonal dynamics, and indeed, your very existence. However, this truth invariably carries with it a profound burden of responsibility. What would be your course of action? Would you earnestly pursue this truth and grapple with its attendant consequences? Or would you opt to persist in your current state of comfort, sustained by a reassuring fabrication? Frequently, ignorance functions not merely as a bulwark against the unfamiliar, but as a robust defense against the sheer gravitas of reality itself. A singular peculiarity of this phenomenon is that chosen ignorance fosters a compelling illusion of control. When we are ignorant of something, we can continue living as if everything were fine, as if there were no problems to confront. We needn't make difficult decisions, nor revise our worldview. Conversely, however, ignorance also impedes our progress. It deprives us of substantial growth, of genuine evolution. It's akin to a child who, upon hearing something frightening, closes their eyes and covers their ears. As long as the child remains in this state, they won't have to contend with what lies before them. But of course, reality does not dissipate. It persists, awaiting acknowledgement. The same holds true for us. Ignorance often serves as our means of averting our gaze from a truth that, if confronted, would demand action, change, or even sacrifice from us. Ask yourself, how often have you chosen not to know something to circumvent suffering? Or, have you ever found yourself preferring not to ascertain the truth, merely to preserve peace and stability in your life? To dwell in ignorance can be tempting, for it offers a semblance of protection. Yet this protection is illusory. Truth, however arduous, possesses the power to liberate. The pain we experience when confronting reality is, in fact, an indicator of growth, a sign that we are emerging from a state of mental paralysis and allowing ourselves to evolve. Nonetheless, resistance to truth does not solely stem from the fear of suffering. In many instances, it is intrinsically linked to the fear of change. To change signifies the forfeiture of something. It could be an entrenched belief, a comfortable way of life, or even a facet of our identity. But what transpires when we resist such change? We continue to exist within a repetitive cycle, where truth finds no quarter and ignorance holds us captive. When we close ourselves off to novelty, to what challenges us, we opt for stagnation. Herein lies the profound irony. In opting for ignorance, we believe we are safeguarding ourselves, yet in reality, we are engaging in self-sabotage. Ignorance, which initially presents itself as a secure refuge, transmutes into a prison, circumscribing our capacity to live fully, authentically, and consciously. Pose this question to yourself. Are you genuinely living to your fullest potential? Or are you sequestering yourself from truth to avert the pain of change? At this juncture of the journey, the observer begins to scrutinize their own mental and emotional defenses. The ongoing reflection delves into the comforts of ignorance and our inherent resistance to change, while simultaneously positing the notion that true liberation is only attainable through confronting the truth. The paramount question here is, are we genuinely prepared to open our eyes and perceive the truth, even if it necessitates profound action and transformation? We inhabit a hyper-connected world where information disseminates with astonishing speed. With just a few taps, we are inundated with news, opinions, and analyses on a vast array of subjects. Yet, what often eludes our awareness is that, beneath this deluge of data, lies an invisible power dictating what we receive, how we receive it, and crucially, what we are led to believe. Media outlets wield profound influence over our beliefs and perceptions of the world. They dictate what is deemed important, what should be feared, what is right, and what is wrong. The media possesses the power to sculpt our perception of reality, steering our choices and even our emotions. And quite frequently, we remain oblivious to this. Have you ever observed how certain news items or topics are incessantly reiterated? How a piece of information, once introduced into our media consumption cycle, begins to solidify in our minds until it is accepted as truth. The media, by virtue of its repetition and pervasive dissemination, has the capacity to fabricate a collective truth, shaping both the substance and the process of our thoughts. However, this manipulation is not always overt. It is often subtle. It lurks in the subtext of a headline, in the specific intonation of a TV presenter, or in the emotionally charged lexical choices. The media is, frequently, the primary architect of collective ignorance, fostering unquestioned beliefs and reinforcing stereotypes. It functions as a lens placed before our eyes, distorting our perception of the world. And because everything viewed through this lens appears authentic, we invariably accept as truth what is transmitted to us, without critically assessing its congruence with reality. But does everything we see and hear via media outlets truly represent the unvarnished truth? Truth itself is sculpted by those who control the information flow. In a world where content consumption is almost entirely digital, the corporations and entities dominating these communication platforms wield the power to craft narratives, steer public discourse, and even sway elections. Often we are mere recipients, being fed curated information that leads us to believe we are well informed. Now, ask yourself, when was the last time you questioned the veracity of a news story or a video you saw on social media? Or perhaps, have you ever pondered why certain topics are perpetually underscored while others, often more salient, remain on the periphery? The power of the media lies not merely in creating or disseminating a story. It resides in shaping the narrative. And this is not accomplished overtly, but rather through a series of choices presented to us daily. The mere repetition of information multiple times does not render it truer, but merely more accepted. The question is, to what extent are you willing to scrutinize what is proffered to you as truth? Ignorance can be masquerading as information, and therein lies the danger. The ignorance instilled in us by the media prevents us from comprehending the entirety, discerning nuances, and scrutinizing the provenance of a story and its implications. What is genuinely true, and what is merely a reflection of a narrative meticulously crafted for us to embrace? The questions that now arise are pivotal for the discerning observer. How far will you go to seek truth beyond what is presented by the media? And more importantly, are you being unwittingly manipulated by what you consume? Manipulation is not an arcane art. It is a pervasive daily reality, often more ubiquitous than we imagine. When we contemplate manipulation, we typically associate it with authoritarian leaders or conspiracy theories. Yet the truth is that manipulation pervades myriad facets of our daily lives, and frequently, we ourselves are the architects of our own perceptual manipulation. The voice of manipulation can emanate from diverse sources. It could be a politician, a social media influencer, a friend, or even a book we read. Anyone possessing the capacity to sculpt how we think and feel can be deemed a manipulative voice. These voices often perform an invisible, subtle, yet potent work. They do not coerce us into believing something, but rather cultivate an environment where we are unwittingly led to embrace certain ideas as indisputable truths. At its core, manipulation is not about overtly deceiving someone, but rather about subtly shaping their choices and beliefs in a manner so subtle that they remain entirely oblivious. Consider advertising campaigns, for instance. They don't compel us to purchase a product, but rather cultivate a desire that previously lay dormant. They awaken within us a consumerist impulse, the notion that by acquiring something, our lives will somehow be enhanced. And frequently this transpires without us even questioning the genuine necessity of our purchases. Now extrapolate this concept to a grander scale. When discussing politics, for example, manipulation becomes even more potent. Through the crafting of narratives that appeal to our emotions, be it fear, anger, or hope, we are steered towards making decisions that do not necessarily reflect what is optimal for society, but rather what benefits those who control the message. The manipulation of information, whether via social media platforms or traditional outlets, ensconces us within a perceptual bubble, where the world appears far more simplistic and linear than it truly is. Yet what is particularly intriguing is that often those who manipulate us do not harbor explicit intentions to deceive. They may simply be endeavoring to promote their own ideologies, market their products, or consolidate their power. The peril, then, lies not solely in active manipulation, but in the passivity with which we acquiesce to certain information. This is precisely where intellectual complacency enters the equation. By passively accepting what is presented to us, we inadvertently create an opening for unwitting manipulation. This psychological manipulation thrives because throughout our lives, we become accustomed to placing our trust in particular voices. We render ourselves susceptible to them as we tend to seek out sources of authority and credibility, even if these are not the most thoroughly substantiated. When we encounter a familiar or recognized voice, our minds are inclined to accept the information as veracious, without adequate critical scrutiny. And it is precisely there that the crux of the issue lies. We permit ourselves to be guided by these voices, neglecting to interrogate their motives or the veracity of their pronouncements. Ask yourself now, have you ever recognized how frequently you've chosen to believe something simply because the source appeared trustworthy? And more critically, have you ever paused to critically assess whether the voice you adhere to genuinely has your best interests at heart? The truth is, all of us are susceptible to manipulation, for it hinges not merely on the purveyor of information, but also on our willingness to listen uncritically. Ignorance oftentimes is perpetuated by our inherent disinclination to question, to delve deeper, to not merely accept what is presented to us. Nevertheless, the pivotal means of overcoming such manipulation lies in self-knowledge and constant critical analysis. Reflect. Are your actions dictated by your own intellect or by the influence of others? By discerning the influences that sculpt your perception, you begin to assert mastery over the narratives you embrace as verity, and what heretofore seemed imperceptible begins to crystallize. Manipulation is an art form, but cognizance of its stratagems is the linchpin of liberation. Contesting external narratives and scrutinizing their underlying motives is the initial step towards ceasing to be a mere pawn in an unseen stratagem. In so doing, you reclaim agency over your own cognitive faculties. Our apprehension of reality is not merely shaped by the information we consume, but by the lens through which we interpret such information. The human cerebrum exhibits the singular propensity to construct a bespoke reality, predicated upon its convictions, past experiences, and external influences. This implies that our individual apprehension of the world can diverge entirely from that of another, even when both are observing the identical scenario. Ignorance frequently engenders alternative, skewed realities, wherein what is apprehended as truth is, in fact, a circumscribed and fragmented construct of ongoing events. And nonetheless, these alternative realities appear as veridical as objective reality itself. The moment we uncritically embrace a particular notion, we commence building a skewed perception of reality, a perspective circumscribed by the confines of our own ignorance. Envision yourself in a chamber with multiple individuals, all observing the identical tableau. Each of these individuals possesses a distinct perspective on the unfolding events, influenced by their personal convictions, their emotional states, and even their antecedent life experiences. The reality they apprehend is not uniform. To one individual, the unfolding circumstances might represent an opportunity. To another, a potential menace. Both perspectives, though divergent, hold validity for them, yet not necessarily for objective reality itself. Now, reflect upon the myriad ways in which these skewed perceptions impinge upon our daily decisions, across political discourse, religious tenets, interpersonal dynamics, and professional vocations. Each of us is, in a sense, a captive of our own constructed reality, and by dwelling within this bubble, we often fail to even question whether we are perceiving the world with the utmost accuracy. But how might we achieve this? How can we ascertain that the reality we inhabit is truly the one we are meant to be experiencing? The predicament lies in the fact that frequently, this distortion is so deeply entrenched that we fail to even perceive how far we have drifted from objective reality. Our minds, with their inherent predilection for simplification, prefer to view the world in a binary fashion, where answers are unequivocally clear and choices straightforward. While this offers a degree of comfort, it simultaneously obstructs our perception of the intricate complexities inherent in situations, individuals, and the world itself. Such is the potency of ignorance. It furnishes us with a simplified rendition of reality, a perspective that sustains us in a state of delusive tranquility. Yet, ignorance is not merely an absence of knowledge. It signifies an unwillingness to confront complexity, to interrogate the realities imposed upon us, and to broaden our worldview. The crucial inquiry here is, are you dwelling within a distorted reality? Or more pertinently, are you prepared to challenge the assumptions you construct about the world, even if it entails dismantling everything you once held to be true? It demands considerable fortitude to acknowledge that our perception of the world might not be the most lucid or the most veracious. It requires equal courage to scrutinize the alternative realities we have fashioned throughout our lives, and to question whether they still hold validity, or if they are merely ensnaring us within a comfortable bubble of ignorance. This represents one of humanity's most formidable hurdles, an inherent resistance to complexity. We invariably gravitate towards the simplistic, the unambiguous, the immediate. Yet in doing so, we inadvertently disregard the inherent beauty of complexity, the richness of diversity, and the profound truths that lie beyond what is immediately apparent. The invitation, therefore, is to transcend this self-imposed bubble, to broaden your perspective, to perceive the world as it genuinely is, not merely as you might wish it to be. This necessitates humility, patience, and above all, the fortitude to confront the truth, however unsettling it may prove to be. And the fundamental question that remains is, are you prepared to challenge your perceived reality and acknowledge that perhaps, just perhaps, you are inhabiting a distorted rendition of what is genuinely true? There are indeed junctures in life that compel us to view reality in an entirely different light. It is in these moments of crisis or profound transformation that we are compelled to step out of our comfort zones and confront truths we have long sought to evade. This awakening, though often painful, is frequently necessary to break the cycle of ignorance we unwittingly choose to perpetuate. When we are finally confronted with a difficult truth to swallow, the emotional impact is immense. It might manifest as a personal revelation, a shift in life's trajectory, or even the mere questioning of something we always believed to be beyond dispute. At this juncture, internal resistance becomes palpable. It cannot be true. I've always believed otherwise. This marks the inception of conscious awakening, yet it is neither simple nor straightforward. Awakened consciousness offers no immediate promise of tranquility. On the contrary, it often arrives hand in hand with a sense of bewilderment, discomfort, and even anguish. As the layers of ignorance begin to peel away, the reality that once seemed simple and clear reveals itself to be more intricate, more formidable. Truth, while liberating, demands that we confront facets of ourselves and the world we would rather overlook. Nevertheless, it is precisely within this discomfort that the opportunity for growth inherently lies. The awakening of consciousness serves as an invitation to transformation. It challenges us to reevaluate our convictions, our choices, and our actions. It calls us to action, to the internal metamorphosis that can only occur when we squarely face what we have attempted to conceal or avoid. Have you ever experienced a moment when an unwelcome truth came to light? How did that process unfold for you? Did the truth emerge gently, or was it a profound shock? Often, we prefer to persist in ignorance because truth demands something of us. It necessitates introspection. It compels action. Yet, it also bestows freedom. The freedom to perceive the world as it genuinely is, devoid of filters or distortions. This process of awakening is not instantaneous. It can be protracted. Initially, it may seem simpler to revert to ignorance, to the solace of antiquated beliefs. However, once consciousness is awakened, there is no turning back. Truth may be arduous to embrace, but it is what enables us to live more authentically, more intimately connected with reality. As ignorance begins to dissipate, we are called upon to reevaluate our lives, our choices, and our impact upon the world. Ignorance, while comforting, impedes our growth. It confines us, trapping us within a sphere of inaction and inertia. Yet, upon awakening to truth, we gain the opportunity to make more informed decisions, to become more authentic individuals, and to forge deeper connections with the world around us. Now ask yourself, what have you been deliberately overlooking? What have you resisted acknowledging, even though you know the truth could set you free? The awakening of consciousness is arduous, yet it remains the sole path to evolution. To truly grow, one must confront reality as it is, unshielded by the veil of ignorance. Genuine growth stems from the capacity to embrace truth, even when it is discomforting. What action will you take when truth finally reveals itself to you? Will you continue to evade it, or will you embrace the transformation it necessitates? Every transformation, however imperative, invariably encounters resistance. This is a universal axiom of the human condition. Irrespective of how self-evident a truth may be, the human mind, by its very nature, recoils from the novel, the unfamiliar, the uncertain. Resistance to change is not merely a matter of comfort. It is a profound manifestation of our apprehension about what might transpire if we relinquish what has always been familiar. Ignorance, in numerous instances, is fueled by the fear of the unknown. When challenged to confront novel concepts or to divest ourselves of deeply ingrained beliefs, we experience an automatic reaction, an intrinsic resistance that urges us, do not alter your course, adhere to what you know. This resistance can be so potent that we opt to persist in the old and familiar, even if it entails remaining in a state of stagnation. Why do we harbor such a profound aversion to change? Change necessitates an internal restructuring, a comprehensive reordering of our cognitive processes, actions, and even our self-perception. This can be profoundly unsettling. Embracing change inherently involves scrutinizing our entire identity, our core values, and the convictions that have guided us thus far. Truth frequently challenges the very foundations upon which we have constructed our lives, and in doing so, it renders us vulnerable. Yet, resistance to change is not confined solely to monumental transformations. It manifests in the quotidian aspects of our existence, in the myriad small choices we make. Whenever someone endeavors to persuade us to perceive matters differently, a natural resistance invariably emerges. We cling tenaciously to the familiar, to that which has historically afforded us a sense of control. Even when change promises improvement, its mere novelty often suffices to induce hesitation. This resistance isn't solely attributable to fear. It also stems from our innate need for coherence. As beings inherently seeking consistency, the challenge to a long-held belief often engenders a profound sense of internal disarray. The human mind, in its quest for security, demands certainty. When this certainty is fractured, a pervasive sense of disempowerment ensues. Ignorance, ironically, furnishes this very security, assuaging us that we are on the correct trajectory, however circumscribed or flawed that path may be. Yet, the profound irony lies in the fact that by resisting change, by deliberately shutting ourselves off from novel concepts, we invariably forfeit the chance for personal growth, self-improvement, and the acquisition of a more expansive worldview. Each instance we opt for ignorance, we simultaneously commit to perpetual confinement within a state of limitation. So, how might we surmount this inherent resistance? The initial stride involves acknowledging its very presence. The mere act of conceding our apprehension toward change constitutes a potent initial advance. To recognize that ignorance is a deliberate choice, and that by embracing it, we actively decline evolution, is the foundational prerequisite for dismantling this resistance. And how does one achieve this? The process commences by allowing truth to permeate our consciousness, even when it presents a formidable challenge. Rather than shying away from novelty or contending against it, we can cultivate the capacity to embrace it. Each instance of resistance is, in essence, an implicit declaration to ourselves that we eschew growth. By embracing change, we simultaneously embrace evolution, acknowledging that our individual worldview, while valuable, will perpetually remain incomplete. The inherent reality is that the world exists in perpetual flux, and to remain attuned, we too must maintain a state of dynamic adaptability. Reflect. What transformations have you steadfastly resisted despite the clear potential for life enhancement? Or, probing deeper still, what are you truly apprehensive about relinquishing if you release that which no longer serves your purpose? Resistance to change, while an inherent human trait, constitutes one of the most formidable impediments to our personal evolution. It anchors us within the status quo, the familiar, and the comfortable, yet in doing so, it effectively precludes us from actualizing our complete potential. When we relinquish this resistance, we pave the way for a future that is inherently more expansive, liberated, and conscientiously aware. Freedom is frequently conceptualized as the absence of external constraints, yet seldom do we contemplate that the most profound form of liberation resides within ourselves. It is the emancipation from ignorance. Throughout our lives, we have been conditioned to accept information without scrutiny, to conform to patterns without critically evaluating the choices we make. Ignorance, therefore, entraps us, maintaining a state of passivity where we merely exist according to expectations, without delving into the fundamental questions of our existence. True liberation, however, commences when we resolve to confront our ignorance and pursue truth, regardless of the discomfort it may engender. Shattering the shackles of ignorance is no simple endeavor. It is a process that demands courage, humility, and above all, an unwavering resolve to step beyond one's comfort zone. Truth can be painful, yet it liberates us. It enables us to perceive the world with greater clarity, profundity, and authenticity. Imagine for a moment that, throughout your life, you have been living a falsehood, a distorted narrative recounted to you since childhood. Now envision possessing the key to unraveling this deception and witnessing reality for the first time. The fear of relinquishing something comfortable, of abandoning a worldview long held, can be paralyzing. Yet authentic freedom demands this moment of rupture. Upon severing ties with ignorance, you gain the capacity to make more conscious decisions, to live in accordance with your genuine values rather than those imposed by others. This process of liberation is not linear. It unfolds in various stages, through moments of profound introspection, and through choices that demand the courage to deviate from the habitual path. As you embrace truth, you begin to realize that many of the convictions you held were not your own, but rather those of others, of society, of traditions that, over time, have lost their intrinsic meaning. The liberation from ignorance is, therefore, an act of self-discovery. It is when you allow yourself to question everything you once accepted as certainty and begin to construct your own worldview. This journey, however, is not facile. A natural resistance emerges with each step, particularly because ignorance offers a deceptive sense of security. When we choose to perceive things as they truly are, we are challenged to contend with complexity, with contradictions, and frequently, with the discomfort that accompanies genuine comprehension. Ignorance, in its essence, precludes us from perceiving the world holistically. It constrains us to a binary and superficial perspective, where issues are oversimplified and solutions appear self-evident. However, in the pursuit of truth, we come to realize that life is far more intricate than we would care to admit. Emancipation from ignorance is, therefore, an ongoing process, a journey without end. There will always be new truths to unearth, new perspectives to explore. Yet, true freedom emerges when one is able to embrace the unknown, to live with uncertainty and complexity, without the need for facile answers. The mere act of questioning, of being receptive to novelty, is the initial stride toward achieving genuine inner freedom. Ask yourself now, are you prepared to relinquish what is comfortable and embark on the pursuit of truth, however challenging it may prove? Or will you continue to opt for ignorance, even knowing it is ensnaring you? The liberation from ignorance is not merely about acquiring knowledge. It's about transforming our perception of the world and ourselves. By embracing truth, however discomforting, you take a significant step towards authentic freedom, the freedom to live fully and genuinely. We have arrived at a pivotal juncture in this journey. Truth has been unveiled, ignorance challenged, and now the critical question arises: what will you do with this truth? Truth is an immense power, yet concurrently, it is an onerous burden. By embracing it, you gain the capacity to transform your life, but are also confronted with a responsibility that cannot be overlooked. Truth is not merely an abstract concept, it is something that necessitates action. The mere cognizance of truth changes nothing. Substantive change occurs when truth is actualized, when it becomes a transformative agent in our lives. This can prove a profound challenge, for truth, however emancipatory, entails the imperative to make arduous, often disquieting decisions. Envision that, upon unearthing the truth about something in your life, be it a situation, a person, or even yourself, you find yourself confronted with a choice. The choice to act or to remain inert. Truth demands proactive engagement. It mandates that you rise and enact change, for there is no turning back. When truth unfurls, it begins to shape not only your perception of the world, but also your interaction with it. Yet, there is an impediment that frequently manifests before us: the resistance to action. Many of us, when confronted with truth, prefer to retreat into ignorance, for to act in accordance with truth necessitates confronting fear, insecurity, and even the ostracism of those around us. Truth is not easily born. It may entail a complete overhaul of our lives, our relationships, our choices. And frequently, the trepidation of the unknown paralyzes us, causing us to waver in taking charge of our lives and actualizing what has been revealed. Yet, growth is impossible without action. Truth becomes transformative only when it is actualized, and it is at this juncture that many falter. They may apprehend the truth but then recoil, apprehensive of its potential ramifications. They cling to ignorance because it offers the path of least resistance. However, genuine growth occurs when we embrace truth as it stands and permit it to guide us, even if it renders us uncomfortable, even if it compels us to undertake radical shifts. Ask yourself now, are you prepared to act in alignment with the truth you now possess, even if it necessitates a complete metamorphosis of your life? Or do you prefer to retreat into ignorance so as to preserve the semblance of comfort it affords? Truth demands fortitude. It compels you to engage in introspection and make arduous choices. It requires the audacity to change, to reinvent yourself, to relinquish what no longer serves its purpose. And this transformation, however daunting it may seem, is the singular path to growth and evolution. The very essence of truth's challenge lies herein. It is neither an expedient nor a comfortable solution. It is a responsibility, an unending odyssey. Yet by embracing and actualizing it, you commence the journey of becoming the finest iteration of yourself. You begin to live authentically, unburdened by the cloaks of ignorance and fear. Truth, arduous as it may be, bestows a profound liberation, a freedom attainable only when we permit ourselves to align our actions with what we discern as true. Now, the pivotal question arises: are you prepared to undertake this responsibility? Are you poised to act upon the truth that has been unveiled to you and consequently initiate the metamorphosis of your existence? Or will you perpetually defer this transformation, allowing ignorance to perpetuate its dominion over your choices? We have reached the culmination of this discourse, yet the true odyssey is merely commencing. All that you have assimilated, all that you have contemplated, must now be transmuted into action. The truth you have pursued, which you courageously confronted, should not be merely retained as knowledge, but rather serve as an impetus to transform your life and the world around you. Ignorance is an unseen confinement, a force that holds us in stasis, allowing us to exist within a secure yet circumscribed sphere. Yet, truth shatters this sphere. It dismantles the shackles that bind us, but it also demands that we assume responsibility for our own destiny. Once you squarely confront the truth, you can no longer feign ignorance. It irrevocably alters everything. It is not a facile truth, nor one that offers solace, but it is the sole truth capable of truly liberating us. Have you ever perceived the potency of truth within you? Have you experienced the power to break free from the fetters of ignorance and take the inaugural step towards a more authentic, more genuine existence? Truth can be arduous, but the pain is merely transient. What endures beyond the suffering is liberation, clarity, and a profound comprehension of oneself and the world. Now, the paramount question is, will you continue to reside within the protective confines of ignorance, or will you dare to venture forth, even if the unknown appears daunting? This choice is unequivocally yours. Each of us is accountable for our own journey and the choices we make. The path of truth is by no means facile. It demands courage, a resolute willingness to confront discomfort, and above all, the humility to acknowledge that there is perpetually more to learn, more to uncover. By embracing truth, you not only transform your own life, but also profoundly impact the world around you. The internal metamorphosis that occurs when we rupture the bonds of ignorance reverberates externally. Every individual who chooses truth contributes to an intricate nexus of transformations that, over time, reshapes collective reality. We are all interconnected, and the profound transformation of one individual can engender ripples of change that extend far beyond their personal sphere. Furthermore, truth imparts genuine freedom upon us. The freedom of no longer being subtly manipulated by ignorance, the freedom to live authentically, unfettered by the constraints of fear and conformity, the freedom to make decisions grounded in verifiable reality rather than distorted perceptions, the freedom to live with unwavering integrity, knowing that our choices stem from a lucid understanding of who we are and what we truly aspire to. And this is the indispensable linchpin of true transformation: to live with truth, with unwavering clarity of purpose, and with the potent efficacy of acquired knowledge. Genuine power emanates from comprehending reality and leveraging that understanding to forge a better, more equitable, and more authentic world. Now consider this. Are you prepared to embrace this truth, however discomforting it may be? Are you prepared to shed the veil of ignorance and live a life of profound fullness, awareness, and authenticity? The decision rests squarely with you. Your present actions will sculpt your future self. You may choose to remain within the perceived safety of the familiar, or you can rise, confront reality, and instigate the transformation the world so desperately needs. The path of truth is arduous, yet it leads to genuine liberation. The persistent question remains: are you prepared to be truly free?